Good morning, friends and colleagues. It is Valentine's Day, day to say I love you to a special someone. This sentiment is certainly eternal, but the phrasing is not. You may yourself know someone who says it slightly different than you do, and you can imagine that over a long period of time, the phrase might change enough that you could no longer recognize it. Of course, this has already happened. Let's go back in time, 5,000 years, to a language we call Proto-Indo-European. Proto, like in prototype, means the first. So, the original language of the Indo-Europeans. Indo as in India, and European as in Europe, because the languages that developed from this one are spoken all around India and Europe. I love you. This phrase contains a subject, a verb, and an object. Who does it, what is being done, and to whom. Some languages order these elements differently from English. Luckily for us, Proto-Indo-European use the same order, so we can simply translate word for word. First word, I. This is a first-person singular nominative. I, not me or my. This was ego. Second element, the verb, is very simple in English, but less so in Indo-European. Instead, we have to build a chain that begins with a stem, an element that contains the core meaning, in this case, to love. And this was lev. Second element is an imperfective aspect. This process is continuous. It does not happen in a second. Love should be eternal, ideally. The marker for this is eiety, and it comes at the end of lev. Next component is an indicative mood. This is a known fact, not a rumor or something untrustworthy. This mood has no marker, so nothing is added to the chain. The last component contains both an active voice and a first-person singular, so I am actively doing it. It does not happen by itself, and it is not done by someone else. The marker for this is me, which comes at the end of the chain. And finally, the object is a second-person singular accusative, similar to me and not I or mine. This is we. So, as a complete sentence, we have ego leviatimi tve. As you may have noticed, these elements contain one or more units of meaning. So this is called a fusional language. A language that you might be familiar with, Japanese, also builds its words from a chain of elements. But in Japanese, there is one element for each unit of meaning. These kinds of languages are called agglutinative. So, Proto-Indo-European no longer exists. All the Indo-European languages of today have developed from it, but different dialects have become radically different in the last 5,000 years. Let's take a pause to look at some classical languages. Classical languages are languages that were used to write thousands of years in the past. So we have very concrete information about them from that time period, compared to English that only began to be written much later. Sanskrit is a classical language of India, and in Sanskrit, the verb had come to be globayati, and to mean to desire. This is very similar to levbeyeti, the imperfective form of love in Indo-European, and the meaning of to desire and to love are both very similar. So fairly little had changed between Indo-European and Sanskrit. When we come to Latin, a classical language of Western Europe, much more has changed. This verb has become libere, and the meaning has shifted to be to please. Both of these are noticeably different, and the meaning is almost the opposite. And in fact, the hole left by love has been filled by another word. The verb for love in Latin is amare, and is likely developed from another Indo-European stem, hem, meaning to take hold, perhaps through a chain of similes such as to hold someone tight, to hold them dear, to hold their hand, something to that effect, most likely with several stages. And then we come to Germanic languages, such as English. It appears that this verb disappeared in Germanic, as it has been reformed from the noun for love, lubor, that did survive into Germanic. The Old English for I love you was ich lufige the. You might notice that the last word the is very similar to thou, thee, that you might have heard in Shakespearean English. This word has disappeared from modern English, and in modern English we say I love you. Originally the you meant several people, not a single person. In modern German it is ich liebe dich, and in modern Swedish it is jag älskar dig. There are two radical differences between these phrases. One is English with you instead of thee, and the other is Swedish with älskar instead of lieben. Here we have another shift in meaning. Älskar comes from the Germanic verb aliskona, which originally meant to care for. Because of this hole in the Germanic language, this verb changed its meaning and came to mean to love. Very similarly as happened between Indo-European and Latin. So we see that very similar processes happen to different languages in different places and in different times. This is also the way love happens to different people in different times and in different places.